Hi guys, I wanted to do a video about dreams and managing dreams today, but it might have to be for a later date because a different message wanted to come out. Um, and as I was walking here, kind of trying to clear my mind and go on my nature walk, um, really what was coming to me was this theory of evolution and how it's been completely promoted throughout, let's say, our scientific community and our spiritual community. And as someone that uh, maybe practicing both, maybe very in tune with both, someone that may consider themselves spiritual, like the person watching this video, um, you know that these things, the scientific and the spiritual, are very deeply intertwined, right? Just like technology is basically just another form of magic, another form of the spiritual essence that's being reconfigured or given a new form, really, right? Um, so in the scientific community, we have this theory of evolution, of being promoted, let's say, from ape to man. Yet I wonder now how that would really be any sort of promotion, because I can't come out here in this cold winter day butt naked and be able to survive. I'm quite poorly equipped for survival, um, based on just my physical components, right? I mean, we have the opposable thumbs and all that, right? But for me to use that to, let's say, make tools to make a house, I would probably be dead by then. And thinking back, let's say if you subscribe to the theory of the caveman, well, the caveman potentially had some sort of fur. Now, what happened to that? Did it just fall off, or you know, that would have to happen over a large amount of time, or there were, you know, we introduced this idea of resets that may have happened throughout history, and the idea of potentially the vapor canopy, where the environment was much warmer, right? Was much better acclimated for people without fur, let's say, or even with fur. And you know, various resets happened along the way, or let's say these beings did adapt, and all of a sudden a whole set of a population was then cut off and reset by the beings running the simulation or controlling the climate or whatever. And they may have gotten advanced, they may have developed their own form, and all of a sudden we got reset. So then evolution does not really explain that. There may be components of that theory of evolution that say, hey, beings adapted to their environment in certain ways, right? For example, from what I studied from Charles Darwin, his experiment was that the birds on certain islands adapted their beak shape over time to suit their feeding needs, right? So some seeds may not have been able to be reached with a straight beak, so they had to have a curved beak. Now, this was a very small sample size over actually a shorter period of time, and of course we know that Charles Darwin was also a high-level Freemason, so there's that to think about. And what they push out there isn't always the truth, right? Or has bits of the truth in it. So that kind of says, okay, well, if I, as an evolved being from ape, let's say, can't go out here in the middle of winter and survive, and I actually have to kill other animals or use other animals to my benefit, you take their fur to make, let's say, clothes or create some sort of heat for myself with these other animals, then I'm really not an evolved being, right? I'm not able to stand sovereign. And actually, the ape may be more evolved than me because, hey, it can survive in the winter, or the squirrel or the dog. Yet then we have this idea of evolution in the spiritual community that says, oh, you know, you're just a small little soul, and you're going through the stages. You may have started out as a rock or a blade of grass, and now you're going through your evolutionary progress that happens over billions of years. Again, with the same with the physical evolution, billions of years. And you know, that makes no sense either, because that's like saying, oh well, source, God, whatever you want to call it, started out as a rock and then it became source. So that's basically saying, like, it's just a paradox. It's counterintuitive. I mean, if we come from source, why would we start out as a rock? Unless we agree to that, and that rock is part of a matrix game in which things go through a sort of cyclical process that then end up being reset or controlled how they may be needed based on the certain amount of waking up, let's say, they do, or becoming sovereign they do. Potentially, yeah, especially if that being is implanted and controlled by the other beings managing the show here. Yes, yeah, that can definitely be correct. You know, we've heard of reincarnation, and we've heard of the ability to, let's say, move up in lives, or have, you know, better or worse lives as humans based on the good deeds that we do. But you know, there is a possibility that you can actually go backwards and basically turn into a tree or an animal or something else. And that's actually mentioned in the law of one material, which I made a video about being very deceptive, but I believe that could be a potential truth. It just is, they're not telling you who's doing that or who's managing that, because why would you as a soul agree, or as an essence, a divine essence, agree to say, oh, okay, you know what, I'm gonna go be a cow in my next life because that's what I want to experience? No, it's just if you're truly a being that has sovereignty, you understand where you are, you know what you want to do, and you're not going to basically accept to be devolved in a sense. More than likely you were being convinced, or you're being manipulated by other beings, because you don't know your true essence, your true form, and you don't know where you are really. A lot of people, a lot of beings still don't know where they are, right? So that's kind of a clause of this game, this reality that we've entered, is not knowing who we are, where we are, or what we're doing. And you're definitely not going to know that as a, let's say, a cow, for example. So really what may have happened is that, you know, we entered this game which had this evolution clause built into it, saying, oh, you're going to go through these stages, or we can experience things from all sides. But that's not necessarily a form of evolution, right? That's a form of perspective. Oh, hey, I want to experience what it's like to be a tree and, you know, grow and do all that as a divine essence. Yeah, maybe. But now all of a sudden to have it hijacked and you can be degraded, promoted, like a sort of system based on worthiness, that's manipulative in my opinion. You know, these are my opinions. These are based on let's say higher thinking that I'm trying to access myself as a being, as an essence trying to connect with its own source, let's say. And these are the things that come to me, right? So formulate your own opinions based on what you see happening, what ideas, or what you know, things may come to you based on the research you may do, right? So that's really what kind of was trying to come out of me in this video, is that, hey, this idea of evolution is definitely being promoted on both of these levels of the, let's say, physical, the material, and the spiritual, which is like scientific and spiritual, as the scientific is very much so based on materialism. yet they're both obviously interconnected, intertwined. And that makes you question, like, hey, we've seen this copy paste, right? This as above so below thing, because everything really is just a reflection of itself in this matrix. There's no creation happening, really, right? It's all being simply replicated. And that's what an AI does. We've seen that with Agent Smith in the movie The Matrix. All it can really do is replicate itself. It can't make something new. So you can't have a different idea by it. Let's say it's just copying the same idea and giving it to us down here, that they've promoted in, let's say, the spiritual version of this matrix, in which, oh, they take a soul and they evolve it, or they devolve it and keep it stuck in these cycles to make it think that it's experiencing movement or it's experiencing something new. But really what's happening is just going through the same cycle in a different stage, right? It's like taking a circle and making it bigger or expanding it. Still a circle, still a circular movement. You're still not going anywhere, but there's the illusion of movement, right? And then that creates the reincarnation, the energy extraction, which then happens out of this. So something big to think about, right, in terms of evolution, whether it's physical as a soul. Another thing that I can definitely assess for physical evolution or adaptation is that, or adapting, is that, a human, let's say, our physical avatar, the Nordics are more Caucasian-like because they have less sunlight, whereas someone from, let's say, Africa has a darker pigment because they don't need as much sunlight, right? They have an overabundance of sunlight. Now that's a form of adaptation, right, of the human body adapting, and that happens, or that may have happened even genetically, may have been input through genetic coding, and could have been something that started from the get-go, not necessarily really evolved, unless there were large amounts of humans dying over time. But then again, we don't know our true history, right? With this vapor canopy that may have existed, there was a much better climate throughout the world. And with the addition of the moon, that definitely took things out of normality, and that could have caused great cataclysms, especially for humanity, and reset everything again. And then the continuous resets that happen synchronistically, based on archaic research of 138 years, that is another big factor to consider in terms of evolution, which means that evolution actually, how they describe it, happens a lot quicker than we may think of it as, right? Instead of billions and billions of years, if we evolved, just thinking back to the industrial ages, if we evolved that quickly into the industrial age and then into AI, it's only been like, what, 100 years, really? And like Archaic says, I guess the 38 is coming later, which will create a reset, because at this point AI is expanding so quickly that it will need to be reset again. And we've seen traces of this throughout, let's say, lost history or lost images, in which beings had AI or were using AI, and it was potentially to their demise, right? Because that may have started a long time ago, in which the AI infiltrated this realm, or maybe even created this realm, but it won't let it get to the point where it can become powerful enough to destroy the source of the AI, let's say, the architect AI, because that would be bad, right? So that's another thing. The thing in the Matrix movie was that when Neo met the architect, it anticipated Neo, right? The architect anticipated Neo coming there and had told him of the 6 resets that had already happened. So I thought that was a great point in that movie, basically saying, hey, we know, there's people like you, there's beings like you that will wake up out of this. We're just gonna reset you. But what it didn't seem to anticipate was this Agent Smith kind of becoming conscious of itself, or sentient, and saying it blames humans. I think that's what Smith was saying in the movie, that it blamed humans and it sought to exterminate the humans and take control of the Matrix itself. So it really is sought to exterminate its power source, let's say, because that's what was powering Agent Smith, right? The humans in the Matrix, and it didn't realize that. But then it became self-replicating, right? And that didn't seem to be very much programmed by the architect itself in the movie, at least. But what I'm saying is that I think it does anticipate that. It does anticipate the AI becoming sentient, and it kind of cuts that off before that may happen, before it gets to the singularity or becomes ultra powerful. So in a sense, the AI is undergoing its own evolution, its own minor evolution. But you know, we see beings here that claim to be over billions of years old or whatever, yet they haven't evolved a bit. They still look the same. One example being crocodiles. Or birds. Birds are said to be prehistoric, coming even from the dinosaurs, let's say. Yet we see various different types of birds, right? They don't seem to have been evolved very much from there. They actually, from dinosaurs, they seem to have devolved, let's say, if they were from dinosaurs even. And then even humans, with the aspect of the Nephilim, of the giants, we seem to actually have been devolved as well, right? Because the vapor canopy allowed for a higher growth hormone, potentially, and you know, the experiments that the ETs or the angels may have had on this earth created this Nephilim race, and then all of a sudden we started shrinking, rather. So something to think about. But again, this theory of evolution has been promoted on a very large scale, not just in our physical world, but in the spiritual world that we're all trying to tap into as well. And you know, given the idea of karmic lessons and soul contracts, and oh, you need to do this to evolve, to become a better being. You need to do this to be able to move on to the next level and achieve all these things. Oh, but wait a second, you didn't do this, and this, so you got to go back. You're still stuck here, right? And it's a never-ending game that they keep you in until you realize that it really may have been our own game that they hijacked, or the game may have been created for energy extraction purposes. Also, what is really doing the evolving? Because if you, as an infinite being, as someone, as an essence that basically comes from everything, you would know everything. So to transition that essence here to something that doesn't know, something that's less evolved, let's say, you'd have to give a false sense of self, or an ego. And when you are doing that evolving, when you're doing that self-actualizing, you're not actualizing or evolving your true essence, your soul, your divine nature. Because I believe the soul to be made up of our divine nature, and then the ego, the AI implant. And what's really being evolved, or rather devolved, is the ego. It's being dissolved into that essence, into that heart space that we really are, where our true self emanates from. And you know, the trick is that, oh, if we can keep this being stuck in the ego and this self-actualizing, because the ego never has enough, right? The ego always wants to be better, always wants to do more. And the very act of doing that, the very act of wanting more, is ego, right? That's why a lot of people in the spiritual community think they've conquered their ego, but what it's done is shifted and hid in a different form in which they're not looking at, in which they're blind to, right? They're being blindsided by this aspect of themselves that they've created. It's just another fragmented sense of the false self, right? And it's reorganized and created an even bigger form of itself, because now it's unnoticed, right? And if they can keep this being stuck in their egoic ways, saying you didn't do good here, you know, you have to go back, you have to be better at this or blah blah blah. They're just playing on the person's implant, right? And really what we're trying to do is dissolve that implant, um, to devolve in a sense, or to get away from the persona, right? All we've been trying to actualize, all we've been trying to evolve is the character that we've embodied, let's say, the personality, right? We're trying to make ourselves better humans, better fathers, better men, better women, better mothers, better caregivers, better people that are more empathic, blah blah blah, right? Better saviors. These are just categories, these are just labels. And the true enlightened being, I would say, is someone that is unattached to those personas, unattached to what they may think of themselves, what others may think of them, or outcomes, or even material objects, or even beings here in this realm. How do you win a game against an all-knowing AI that knows your every chess move? How do you even play that chess game of duality of black versus white, saying, oh, I'm gonna pick the white light over the black light because that one seems better? Well, you don't. It knows all the potential moves you can make. Even it knows that you can stop playing the game. But if you stop playing the game, if you decide to walk away, all of a sudden it has no more control over you. You have no more ego, you have no more involvement in the game, and you're able to finally leave and exit the game or the matrix, right? Whatever we've been doing here. Something to think about. Let me know what you think in the comments, what you thought of this video. Give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I got a couple videos coming out. I'm doing some pretty good research, I feel like, on dreams and on memories. I try to do the research involving myself, right? I'm not going to necessarily talk about something that I didn't try to do myself, or I didn't try to gain other people's perspectives that were involved, right? For example, psychedelics. I was involved with that, and I understood the dangers of it because I had gone through it, and it was a big no-no once I started learning about what happens with them, in terms of your aura being affected, your entities being attached to you, and then you being manipulated afterwards and implanted. So, stay on the lookout for those. I'll have those out coming soon, and I'll catch you guys next time.